Hey everyone, this is David Higby with the Bridge Broadcast. This is episode 18, and this is a continuation of our Listen and Learn event that we hosted on Wednesday. And so, first, we want to thank our speakers. We want to thank everyone that participated and listened in to our student athletes and alumni. This podcast episode is going to be a deep dive into some of the topics and some of the conversations that we hit on. We want to continue to give our kids a platform, continue to give them an opportunity to share their voice, and we all hope that everyone here listens in with an open mind and understands that we all have a variety of opinions and thoughts on how to make things better, but it does appear right now that everyone wants to be going in the same direction. And so we're thrilled about that. We're hopeful, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Ahmad, why don't you start and introduce yourself, just because you're in my gallery view, you're up top.
Okay, I'm Ahmad Crawford, and I've been with Bridge for 5 years now, and I'm a rising senior.
Let's say Becca.
Okay, hi, I'm Rebecca Contreras. I was with Bridge for 3 years, and I'm about to be a sophomore at UT Austin.
And I'm Kelsey Johnson, and I played lacrosse with Bridge for 7 years, and I'll also be a sophomore at the University of Oklahoma.
To start with, what were your, just kind of your thoughts from Wednesday's Listen and Learn?
Okay, I guess I'll go. All right. I like the conversation because there's like different point of views from about the situation, and I think we informed a lot of people who were there. I liked it.
Good.
I liked it too. I just kind of wish it was longer. I enjoyed the conversation. But yeah, I liked what everyone who was speaking had to say, and I feel like Channy had good things to ask, like each person whenever they talked about their own thing.
Yeah, some good follow-up and maybe some clarity what about you, Becca?
I also really liked it. I think I said it on there that I really liked the amount of adults that were on there. Because when I've talked to people most about this, it's always like teenagers or young adults, but adults have a important role in this conversation too. So it was good to see.
Yeah. Kelsey, you mentioned that you kind of wish it was longer, and it looked like you guys, the rest of y'all, are kind of agreed. Is it because you wanted more speakers, or maybe more time to kind of share your stories? What could we have added? Or what would you have wanted to add?
I guess maybe because I understand it was an opportunity for us to talk about our own experiences, answer questions from previous or alumni and Bridge players, but then it kind of would have been nice to include the adults who were there who might not be part of Bridge, and just see how they're experiencing everything, because if they commented after every one of us talked and said how they had, if they had a different point of view or how they've seen change or whatever the case may be, it would have been an open dialogue with them and not just having to sit there and listen to us, which I agree I enjoyed, but that would have been nice to have too.
And I think that would have been hard with that many people that were on.
Yeah.
But I do agree. And Kramer said when he was kind of looking through the gallery, there were people in the audience, they were really dying to ask something that they really wanted to ask a question to one of you all, or maybe ask for clarity. But he could tell, he was people were really maybe wanting to also engage. And I think the storytelling format, there's limitations to that kind of format, right? Where it's just you all kind of downloading your thoughts and experiences. What about Ahmad and Becca? What about you two in terms of anything else that maybe we could have done differently, or obviously for next time, because this is not going to be the only thing that we do?
No, so you go. You can go.
Okay. I was thinking more along the lines of also having that open discussion, probably to brainstorm ideas of how to keep this conversation going and what actions can be taken. Because honestly, I don't know what else can be done from my standpoint, other than keeping the conversation alive and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I know adults can be in contact with more adults who are who work for the DISD school board or something like that can have these formal conversations in schools and with parents and stuff. So that would have been a nice conversation to have to get some action done.
Yeah, to kind of put something on the audience, right? Leave some action items that people can take home with them. Ahmad, what about you? Anything that maybe we add for next time? And there will be a next time for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of like the same thing with like them asking us questions, because like I know we were saying some things, and I know like some of them can like bring up questions or bring up different points. So I think it was mostly just like them asking questions to us so that we could like try to inform them from our experience.
Yeah. Okay. What do you guys think about this? And this is a continuation of you guys' what you guys said. Maybe going a little bit smaller, right? So instead of community, because there were people from, like I said at the beginning of that, it was a lot of people from Highland Park, McKinney, Frisco, a couple of people from Houston, Austin. I believe there were a few people from Baltimore. One of my thoughts was, what if we go kind of micro, right? And let's now just talk with the McKinney lacrosse group or the South Lake lacrosse group. And then it's not 80 people in the room. It's still like 4 or 5 of Bridge people and maybe 5, maybe a few more, right? From just one community, right? Because they're, communities are certainly different and have a different, they have their own action items in place, hopefully. Do you think that would work too? And like, what would that look like for you guys? So if like, let's say we were just talking to, Highland Park or ESD, what would you guys want that format to look like?
I think, or at least my idea would be more of like that Q&A format of like, hopefully they would be asking how can they be more inclusive within the sport, not even just within the sport, but within their own community.
Certainly.
Which is probably hard because it's Highland Park, it's not terribly diverse.
Yeah.
I think the Q&A portion would be pretty important to like that. Yeah.
I agree. I think that was the one thing I think I was really satisfied with or really happy with to see is the number of people from outside of Bridge that were on, because our initial conversation was, let's just make it internal, Bridge only. But the audience is not us, like or you guys, I say, and as student athletes and alumni, you all sort of have these shared experiences. It's people from outside of Bridge who may not have those experiences or those stories that you guys have. Kelsey, what's something that, what are some things that you'd want to engage with people from South Lake or Frisco or Plano? Like, what are some topics that are important? Like, what are some topics that are important to you that you'd want people from those areas to know about, or maybe ask you?
I guess one, especially like with how it started, like with the whole movement and the protesting, all that, is understanding people's intentions and I feel like first, or at least for me, being asked the question, why are y'all doing this, is better than saying you shouldn't be doing that, and like questioning, like understanding rather than being like, well, they shouldn't be doing this or they shouldn't be doing that. So like if it was like a organization like from South Lake or Frisco, them asking, why are people wanting this demand? Why do they feel like that? Help me understand this. So it wouldn't be so much of a small-minded question, but instead of trying to be empathizing with the situation. Because like when the rioters and the looters and stuff like that happened, people were just being so negative toward it, when this stuff is like just spilling over for 400 years, instead of seeing like they saw like the small thing, but it's like a bigger scope. So I guess stuff like that.
Yeah, wanting to start from why is this happening?
Yeah, but like a wanting to know more instead of devaluing someone's feelings and someone's reaction to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ahmad, what about you? What's something that you'd like to be asked from an outside community, or something that maybe you didn't say on Wednesday that you'd like people to know?
Yeah, I think it was like just to look inside their own communities and like kind of like call out people if they do like see someone who's like being racist or saying like comments that are probably offensive, and say that it's okay to call other people, like even if it might like people might not like you, but it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just like to make sure to hold each other accountable in your community.
Yeah, definitely. And that's tough. I think we all sort of have trouble with that, whether it's race or just inappropriate jokes, or how we treat, gender, how we treat people that are maybe different. I think we've all had experiences like that where we should have said something and, maybe we did or didn't. One thing that I wanted to ask you guys is, I think one thing that was really interesting to me was a lot of you had said, oh, I hadn't really had a negative or overtly racist moment on the lacrosse field. And I think that's really good. I actually didn't necessarily expect that, because we do, we hear stories and, we have incidences that happen, but you guys have all had, for the most part, a pretty positive relationship with the sport of lacrosse then.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is then? Because lacrosse is one of the homogenous sports. It's got the relation, and truth is that it's a wealthy sport. You would think that maybe you'd have more, at least I would have thought there would have been more negative experiences. Why have kind of not had those stories?
I think mostly because people around like Dallas respect Bridge Lacrosse. Like they respect us and they respect the name Bridge Lacrosse. So I think most they wouldn't say anything to us because they respect who our organization is, what our organization is. And that's who I mostly play lacrosse with. So I think that's really one of the reasons why I think I haven't heard anything or said anything about me, really.
That's good.
Yeah, I think so. I never really thought of it that much because, that's a good point. I never really had that experience, and I kind of wonder why. But I think that's a pretty strong reason why.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Sorry, Kelsey, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I think also, at least for me, if someone was being small-minded or racist or misogynist or whatever, I didn't intentionally look for it, or I didn't even acknowledge it. It kind of just went over my head or something. The only incident, it wasn't, and whenever she asked that question, it wasn't even an incident that was oh my gosh. But whenever we had one game, I think we were juniors or seniors or whatever, me and Bailey were on the team, and someone told me other people on the other team were watch out for the black girls, and I didn't even take it as them being racist. They're just acknowledging us by our color. But incidents, stuff like that, or things that could have happened, I just didn't choose to see, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's me deciding I'm not letting someone judge me on my color, or if I was just oh well, I'm just gonna play the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think even JJ's story was, she had someone say something awful to her, and it sort of took her maybe time later to process. And I think maybe, when you're in the game and the adrenaline's going, there's a lot of things going on outside of just listening for what other people say to you or at you. Maybe it's easy to just kind of let it slide, or you kind of miss it or don't process it because you've got a ton of other stuff on your mind. I think overall, I'm very happy that you guys have not had a lot of those experiences in Bridge. I wonder then, because of that, if kids of color, lacrosse players of color on other teams that aren't Bridge, I imagine it might be tougher for them. Do you guys have friends who maybe go to predominantly white schools or live in predominantly white neighborhoods? Do you think their experiences are a lot different than yours because you guys all are in more diverse school, or come from more diverse schools and neighborhoods?
I know at Lake. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I know at Lake Highlands that was an issue with black football. I mean, it was kind of within our own school, just black football players and their white counterparts just feeling okay with calling them the N-word and using that word freely. But it was kind of just normalized on that way, and it was oh, they're all part of the football team, it's fine, and everyone kind of overlooked that. That's the only one I can really think of right now, but I'm sure that there's been many instances that just weren't talked about because they didn't want to, or they just were focused on the game and stuff.
Yeah. And Becca, remind me, what is the makeup of Lake Highlands? Because it's a large school. It's a little bit outside of, I think you're the only Lake Highlands player that we've ever had. So what is the makeup of Lake Highlands?
I think it's actually pretty diverse. I think it's about 30% is white, and then I think it's close to 30% white, 30% black, and 30% Hispanic. I think those are the main, the biggest groups.
Yeah.
Pretty diverse, but then you look within the school, and then it's where people are, who's in the AP classes, who's in the regular classes, and that's where you see a real break in the diversity.
Oh, okay. And yeah, and I assumed it was probably a little bit more diverse in other suburban schools or, just schools in general. How does that, because of that like range of diversity, do you think that's given some people and maybe the white community and like kinds sort of an excuse to maybe be more subtly racist or biased because, oh, I go to a school with a lot of Hispanic and Black kids, so therefore like I'm not the problem. Do you think have you seen some of that?
I've definitely heard that. They're like, oh, I have a Black friend, like they let me say the N-word, or they're like they use that like one friend as an excuse for their racist actions. I've definitely heard that ever since I was little, really like elementary school, I would hear that. So it starts really young, and it's just like, no one ever tells them it's wrong.
Yeah.
And speaks out against it. Yeah.
And Ahmad and Kelsey, you guys had gone to, and this is high school, obviously. Ahmad, Barack Obama is relatively diverse, with I guess the exception is there's not a lot of white kids. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So so what are your experiences like in the high school then in terms of race? I mean, because most of the kids that are Black or Hispanic, do you guys have some of these same conversations? How much different would it be if there were more white kids? That type of thing.
I think it's mostly like it's like between like Hispanics and Black people mostly. Like kind of like minority on minority, basically. Like so it's kind of like those talks, like kind of like saying some things that are like inappropriate towards other like to a Hispanic person or to a Black person. So it's mostly not really like have to deal with like white people, but it's mostly just like in between like races. Like that's usually when we have to have like a talk or something.
Are those common then? Like hey, to the Hispanic community or to the Black community, like these are things that you cannot say, or this is inappropriate. Are those common conversations?
Well, sometimes because people can just think it's like a joke to like joke about it. And like sometimes teachers have to like kind of call it out because they're really just bringing down your own race, kind of. Because sometimes people say it to themselves. Like say like something that might be offensive to like their own race, like kind of like downgrading, like degrading themselves. So I guess that's mostly like the conversation, really.
Okay, interesting. And then Kelsey, what about you? Because Irma's a pretty diverse school too. What was your experience like in high school in terms of just recognizing and understanding the diversity in the school?
I was, at least for like my graduating class, there was only like 7 or maybe 6 or 7 Black girls. So, and the rest of them were Hispanic, and like
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, and like 3 or 4 white girls. And besides that, I mean, everyone acted pretty normal. It was just a varying for personalities and just different mindsets. And then at times, like if because the Black girls were pretty much good friends with each other, and then they would be friends with everybody else. So it was like us like trying to make our own groups outside of ourselves. And sometimes people would look at us a certain way if we were all together and we were just doing our own thing. But besides that, it was pretty normal. But then like with the question you asked about do we have friends who are on other teams who go to like predominantly white schools. I had a friend, and he played at Parrish, but he never told me like there was anything different. But I feel like that was only because he was decently good. Like he was a really good person on the team, so they just kind of overlooked his color based off of his skill set.
Yeah, and I'm afraid that's probably more common than not. That you have a Black kid or Hispanic kid who excels at a certain sport in a predominantly white school, like a private school. And so, there's a level of acceptance because they excel at sports that's, wouldn't be granted to someone else. And I think that's unfortunate. And Ahmad, I don't mean to leave you out of this question, but you're not in college yet.
It's cool.
So Becca and Kelsey, you guys go to two pretty large colleges, predominantly white. Coming from more diverse schools, like what was that transition like to go from, for you, where you're saying basically like a third. UT is not like that, at least as far as I can tell. Was there a transition in that high school to college demographic?
Honestly, for me, I didn't really notice it. Maybe it was because I was like too preoccupied with like trying to get my stuff together because it's my first year of college, so I
That's
wasn't
fair.
too noticeable. But like in high school, I was in mostly like pre-AP and AP classes, and I did like extracurriculars like mock trial. So even in those things, I was surrounded by mostly white people,
Okay.
and so I didn't really see a difference in going to UT. But there's definitely more representative groups within UT. Like
Good.
you have the Black Students Alliance, the Hispanic Business Student Association. So there's much more appreciation for like a smaller sect of people that you can join that look like you and have similar interests, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. And are you a part of any of those organizations?
No, mine are pretty like broad like organizations. I'm not
Yeah.
really one of those, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. UT, did you see I guess that statement that it's mostly the football team put out yesterday?
Yeah, I saw something like they
Yeah.
posting, but
I had no idea that the Eyes of Texas that had so much negative racial history to it.
yeah.
I had no idea. I didn't go to UT. I hated UT when I was in college. 'Cause I'm an OU grad like Kelsey, or soon to be like Kelsey. But yeah, that's heavy. I had no idea, and I've heard that song a billion times, and it makes me shudder. But now even more so.
Yeah, like my first semester of my freshman year, we have a class. It's like your undergraduate studies class. So it's kind of your like freshman orientation class. And my teacher talked about that, and a lot of students were surprised. Like they didn't know at all, even though they had parents that went to UT, and everyone knows that song.
So they share that information with you when you get there.
Yeah, but it's like you have to choose to be in that class.
Oh, gotcha.
There's so
Okay.
many different classes you can take. But yeah, not a lot of people know about that, or
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know about that. They were surprised.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And Kelsey, kind of the same question to you, or the same. OU, and I went to OU, and in a lot of ways, it's tough for kids of color. And OU, unfortunately, has had a series of events over the past, since I graduated, that have been, that made national headlines. How have you processed that? Because I had a great time at OU, and it's a great school in a lot of ways, but it's gotten a lot of negative, horrible things have come out. How have you processed some of those things from your school? Our school. I say your school. Our school.
I guess in a way, like I was prepared because since I was younger, my parents have been like preparing me for like that the outside world isn't gonna be as nice as us, or like even from the moment I was born, my parents like chose my name based off the society I was gonna grow up in. So like stuff that occurred on campus and stuff like that, or that's happening, I wasn't necessarily surprised or like scared in a sense, but I was just like, it's just ignorance, and people, it doesn't make sense to do that because you're just doing it for show and you don't know the meaning behind what you're doing. But I like how Rebecca said she didn't really like notice it because she was focusing on her studies. I have to agree because I just focused on like getting my stuff done and also making my own kind of friends.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I say that, and I think that's good too, because I think part of it is, I think sometimes adults in the room forget that you guys are college students, and that not every race topic is going to come up for you guys on a day-to-day basis. You're at the end of the day students, and that's obviously, and you're there for academic reasons first. And the racial stuff is there and underlying, and it's the foundation of who you all are. But it's not you're not in that mode every single second. That would be exhausting. So you guys have both had a fairly positive experience then at Texas and OU then. Good.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed from Wednesday, and I don't know if you all did too, is, everyone had great stories, and I think for the most part, like everything was very digestible, and the feedback we've gotten from people was, these are great stories. These are really great. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to hear from you all. One thing I kind of noticed is that some of the maybe heavier topics weren't talked a lot about. For example, some of them I say controversial, for me, maybe not so much, but things like defunding the police or the current presidency or kneeling, right? These are part of this atmosphere right now and what we're in this movement that I noticed didn't come up. And so I wanted to ask you all, was that maybe from your end intentional? And obviously those are maybe deeper conversations that we all have to have as a group, but were some of those things on your mind when you guys were talking?
At least for me, they weren't on my mind. But in terms of like for defunding the police, that's just I see the desire for it, but at the same time, like my mom says, they need to reallocate the money. But I don't know how that's gonna work. For the president, I don't like him, and I just think and it's not so much as like who he is, just like the way he initiates things and the way he just spews out negativity. And then for the kneeling, it's like from the moment, like you mean like kneeling on the
kneeling, like like kneeling in terms of during the anthem.
I agree with it. From like the moment Colin Kaepernick started it, I understood it, because before they took it out, the national anthem had a part in it where it talks about how the slaves' blood was spewed all over it, and basically saying the way we built this nation is off the slaves. But before they took that part out, and that's the part he was talking about, and just the I didn't see him as going against his country. I saw him going against the negative ways that the country was built upon, that is continuing to years today. So let's start like that.
Yeah, certainly. And I apologize. Yeah, kneeling in terms of kneeling during the national anthem that Kaepernick started. Becca, Ahmad, what about you all? Were there certain things that are maybe heavier topics that you all wanted to bring up or would like to bring up in the future then?
Yeah, there are some things I just didn't say because there's something that I just didn't say because I wanted to kind of keep it short and just say the talk about the Black Lives Matter and all that. I didn't I didn't want to get into the police brutality and the racial profiling. And I was gonna maybe do it another time, like you said.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. And one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I didn't give you guys any prompts, because if you did want to hit on those things that again maybe have more controversy or maybe that need more digestion from people, I wanted to leave that open. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think, we're going to get to a point where we have those discussions internally, externally, and with people who may disagree with those things. I think that's part of this process. Becca, what about you? Is there certain topics that are pretty heavy for you personally that we get to next time?
Yeah, I know I didn't talk about the whole defunding the police and that stuff because I wasn't really super informed on it, so I didn't really want to speak on something I wasn't sure of.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
I'm still not too informed, but I do know a reallocation of some money that funds the police department seems like a good idea when it's being taken away from communities that need it.
Mm-hmm.
And then more symbolic stuff kneeling and burning the flag. I know those are pretty controversial to some people, but personally, I don't see them as a hate towards the country or the people who have died for the country, but more of a hate for the way that the system is treating them and how it's going unacknowledged, and people are kind of pretending everything's okay because you have freedom of speech and freedom of religion, but in reality it's not always being protected equally for everyone. So
yeah,
but I know that's really controversial for some people.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that some of those issues are met with a lot of resistance, and I'm kind of in the same boat as the three of you all. Yeah, but there is a lot of stuff out there that there's really not a consensus, right? Whether it's defunding the police, whether it's how we see statues and how we revisit history. I mean, I live not too far from a few of the Confederate statues downtown, and they're working on that, I think, today to tear one of the larger ones down. And yeah, it's a tough discussion that we have to have with a lot of people because there's some gaps in knowledge and gaps in understanding. But one of the things from Wednesday, I did notice that some of those really maybe more nuanced topics went on, and I think that's okay. And I wanted to leave you all with that open space to talk about really your experiences overall. Maybe not necessarily to hit on individual topics with this, because there's a lot out there, right? There's a lot that we still have to educate ourselves on and others. What next, right? So Bridge is a organization that, we're not an activist organization. We've promoted diversity and inclusion and equality, and we're learning that's no longer enough, right? Those are really nice things to promote, but now we have to level up, right? We have to be openly anti-racist and we have to openly fight against white supremacy. And as an organization, that's new for us, right? Because we start with lacrosse and we want to bring it to a lot of kids. And so now we're talking about a different maybe approach or different mentality we have to have. What would you guys like to see from organizations like Bridge, who are kind of on the fringe, right? Like, we've always promoted these things that are in line with what we all believe in, but now it's time to level up. How do we do that? Any suggestions?
I was thinking, because at my school we have like voting, like get people signed up for voting and stuff. So I think that we could like hold like an event where you can like get people signed up to vote and like get registered to vote, because that's like one of the biggest ways you can like make change is like voting. So I think that's one of the things we can do.
For sure. Ahmad, when you turn 18?
Next year. So
next year,
yeah.
You got a little ways. Yeah, but you seem like you're gonna stay informed regardless.
Yeah.
Becca, Kelsey, what about you all? What are things that an organization like Bridge, and not just us necessarily, but organization like Bridge, what can we do? What are some next steps that you'd like to see?
I think a couple of summers ago, I don't know if you still do this, where you went out to, at least when I went, it was mostly like Hispanic communities, and we kind of did like lacrosse coaching for them. So that's like, I don't really remember what that was.
Yeah, we did some, we do like these outreach clinics. Like, we'll pop into like a new neighborhood or like a community center, and we'll do kind of pop-up work, like lacrosse instructions that we were talking about.
Yeah. And so I thought
we
cool.
we still do a lot of that.
Okay, yeah, and like starting conversations there. I guess not just with the kids, but also their parents if they're there.
Right.
Because that's important. Yeah, the voting things are also really important, because I know a lot of people who are like, oh, like, I don't like either candidate, I'm just not going to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's kind of worse than just not voting at all. So people need to be informed of why it's so important to vote, and not just be indifferent about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with both of what they said, and then also I think, like how Rebecca said about like doing the outreach clinic things, I think also not only just because like for students we make sure we're self-aware, but also making like sure like the people who are like part of like Bridge organization that are like big heavy people in that like focus on like the programming and working with the students as well as the coaches are self-informed, especially about the stuff that like we don't learn in classes and stuff, because like during this time I've learned a lot that I did not know that they don't tell us, that you have to look for that information on ourselves and not be like, not just listen to everything you hear, but like going out for yourself. So I think making sure even the coaches are self-informed, as well as like how in the beginning we have to do like our dues and like sign the contract and everything, but make sure like in there, like maybe if it's like not like a huge thing, to like put somewhere that's like you're an inclusive organization that does not discriminate based off race and all that, because it's one thing to say it, but like, and to like exercise it, but to know that like without a doubt that Bridge is this organization who is for the minority, who's for the majority, who's for this and who's for that on a piece of paper. And like your members are signing a contract saying we believe in this motto and this initiative, and each day we go out, we're gonna try to do that, not only on the field but also off the field, but also like holding each other accountable.
Yeah, Kelsey, I love that. That's a great idea. I think, and that was one thing early on that maybe we struggled with, of like, what's our statement going to be? Because in a lot of ways, you guys have been a part of this organization for so long. I hope that it's obvious where we stand on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
But not based on an official statement, right? Based on the work we've done and the relationships we've built all together. But I like that, though. I think there's a level of accountability that hey, we're going to put this out there so that everyone can see, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable, but we're going to maybe even more importantly, you guys can hold us accountable, right? Because, I've said this, I hope I said this before, that essentially at the end of the day, you all are my boss, right? You all dictate and govern what I do, because this organization's for you all, right? Like, without you guys, I got to go find another job. So I think there's that level of count helps, but I like that. So I think something at the beginning of the season that's like, hey, just so everyone here knows, like, these are the stands, and we also want you to stand behind it as well. I like that. We can do that right away, Kelsey. I think that's a great idea. The one thing I wanted to share with you all that we're going to work on too is, right now we're going to build maybe like an internal committee. And, I think a lot of companies and organizations are doing that to put out a plan of action. And I've seen some really positive stuff that's out there. For example, like the Premier Lacrosse League, they're doing, they're taking off company holiday. 17th will be a company holiday. The election day will be a company holiday. We want to do some training for our board members. What are some things that you guys have seen other organizations do that you're like, that's a great idea? I like that a lot. What are some things that you guys have seen that companies or organizations are doing to, take action, right? Because words are great, but action is better.
I know just kind of what I've seen at UT is every organization I'm in, or like the bigger ones, have like a specific like little committee dedicated to diversity and inclusion. Even some of the colleges have that. The big organizations that I'm part of have that, in which their primary focus is diversity and inclusion, and how they can promote that through their actions, through their statements, and like through their community work in the school. So I think just having like a set group of people to be constantly working on that could be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. And I think that's hopefully what we'll do. I'll be up front. Our board needs some diversity, and we need to look at how we recruit board members. We need to look at how we recruit coaches. For the most part, I'm actually pretty proud of the diversity we have in our coaching staff, but obviously we need to audit and evaluate, and we need to constantly be in that mode. I'm trying to think what other organizations or companies have done. There's been some good stuff out there. Kelsey, seen that's a great idea. There's a lot out there. I mean, social media has been, I've been inundated with with a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's hard to fully digest all of them.
I mean, like, cause for the obvious things is I think I've seen a lot of companies do is like cancel their brand deals or whatever with people or organizations who have shown bias or favoritism towards like white supremacy or the Confederate flag, but y'all don't do that. So like,
I hope not.
Well, I don't expect to do.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I just feel like the conversation, just wanting to have conversation and just being intentional about it, like how you've been doing, like how we're doing right now, is just something hopefully Bridge will keep up even when like we go back to school or whatever the case may be, when people start to die out, that like it'll still be something that's like, okay, well, even though everyone else isn't doing, we're still making sure it's an initiative we have. So I guess that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's really easy right now to throw out these action items and make these big plans, but in 6 months and a year, are we going to hold ourselves accountable to what we say now? And are we actually going to get things done? And that's really tough, right? There's so much positivity and hopefulness right now.
Right.
But, hey, it's going to be a long summer, and there's still a pandemic, and school's going to restart in a few months. And so it's easy to kind of let off the gas a little bit. So, and I think that's why this conversation is important, because, my hope is to be able to come back to you all, to the three of y'all, and say, hey, the things we talked about are still being talked about. And, hey, we want to do a second conversation or whatever. Ahmad, what about you? I don't know if did that question get to you? Sorry.
Yeah, I think I've seen the same thing. And then I've seen some companies like have like how Netflix has like, just like when you open it, it has like the Black Lives Matter collection. So it has,
that's right.
It has like all the different movies and stuff that that can inform you about it.
Yeah, I started the new Spike Lee movie last night. I fell asleep before I finished it.
Yeah, I watched it
that's
yesterday.
Cool. Is it good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Good. That's on my current watch list. I guess the last question is, because I don't want to keep you guys forever. One of my questions to you guys is the use of social media, and all this has been really fascinating. I'm just curious how you all are using social media to stay active or educated. Do you have certain platforms that you're kind of exclusive to? Is there content out there? Are there platforms or people that you're following specifically because it's really good information? And what are you all, and are you all putting stuff out yourself?
I feel like a lot of the social media platforms I'm on is just like friends and family, so it's kind of an echo chamber of information, which I know isn't the best. But like on YouTube, I'll watch like Philip DeFranco, which isn't really an unbiased standpoint, but I think it's a good information source. Like he does thorough research on his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty good. And then on terms of like what I put out on social media, I think it's more my personal experiences or like friends' experiences that they let me share rather than just reposting like stuff everyone's seen like 30 times already.
Yeah.
Because that does get tiring, and it's kind of after a while, it's just like there's people have seen this, try and like promote something new, more informal or more formal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been using the Bridge story, the Instagram stories, and I've been posting a lot of stuff I've seen, but I'm essentially being pasting what, some of our alumni are putting out. So that's a good point. I need to maybe be more in what we're putting out there because we have been out there at times. Ahmad, how are you using social media right now to take in information and spread it?
So before like all this happened, I've already been like following like some like news channels, like news stations, but like not really like unbiased ones that really just like don't really have like they don't swing like to the left or to the right really. I try to get like some that are just like just stating the facts from like a third person point of view. And, like try to stay informed like that.
Yeah.
And then I've been like reposting some videos, and I've been trying to like post like speeches like that some people do, like some celebrities, most, and not like just like the thing like the photos that are just like give you like tips and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but like give like I guess inspirational stuff.
Yeah, I think
like stuff that can inform you from like other people.
Yeah, it's hard to go. I mean, I feel like when people are posting, and this became a big conversation early on, is are you virtue signaling? Are you just posting to be a part of the movement? I personally, I think it's good if anyone posts anything, right? That's not harmful. I think you can get, like Becca, you said, there's some stuff that might be redundant or you're kind of in an echo chamber. But I think one thing that I've appreciated is that people are trying, and if they're getting it wrong, I think we're giving people leeway, or we're giving them grace to be wrong, because I do think there is some authenticity in people wanting to be a part of this, even if they have no idea. And I'm kind of in that crowd. Sometimes I have no idea what is the best thing to put out there. But I think the people around, myself including, are giving us some grace and some, hey, instead of posting this, post that, right? Or, here's a better article or a more informed resource. So I think that's a good thing. Kelsey, what about you? What's the social media scene like for you right now?
I definitely agree with what Rebecca said about the echo chamber, and then how Mod said he was like focusing on like people who aren't like to the left or to the right, but like focusing on watching the news and stuff like that. And I've been doing what both of them have said. I know for like a lot of people who like go to my college, they've been posting a lot of stuff about individual people who have been showing like white supremacists, or like how that thing, it's a negative connotation, but like the Karens, and do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm familiar.
Okay, so yeah, like they've been like one of my friends, she's been, if someone will post something, she finds their information or like the organization they're with to contact those people. And on one end, it can be like a good thing of like saying you have this person who is promoting these things, and I'm not sure if you want them to be a part of that. And then on another end, it's like you're kind of ruining someone's reputation. So take it with whatever you want. But like in terms of social media, like especially on Instagram, I've been learning a lot. Like with how you said with Colin Kaepernick, at first before he started kneeling, he was sitting during the national anthem, but then a military veteran told him, instead of sitting, you should kneel, because when we have fallen soldiers, we kneel for them at their for a memorial. And so instead of sitting, he told him to kneel. And so I just think, or like also I watched this video, and also TikTok is very informative too. I learned on TikTok that the Statue of Liberty was given from France, technically for the slaves as a celebration to end slavery. But when we got it from France, they didn't want anything to have to do with slavery, so they tried to take any remnants of the slave off of it. But if you go see it, she still has chains at the bottom of her feet, or just stuff like that, just stuff that
really, I did not know that. I did not know that.
We don't know. Yeah, and like I feel like I haven't been in New York yet, but I just want to go to see this. But they said there's chains at the bottom of her feet showing that. And then even in France, they're very biased towards white Americans, but they love like minorities and stuff like that. So it just goes to show how much even people would be like, well, how do you know that's true? Well, history shows it today that even now that those people don't favor slave societies and stuff like that. But just how both Rebecca and Ahmad said, just taking everything and seeing for what it is, face value, and then going out and looking for more is what I've been trying to do. And also trying to read more, even though we're not in school. I've been reading and I enjoyed that because like even stuff like written by Frederick Douglass back then is still relevant to this day. So
yeah, certainly. Yeah, did you guys see that the New York Times nonfiction like bestseller list right now is literally 10 like all books on anti-racism or history on Reconstruction and slavery and Jim Crow and segregation. It's people are taking it seriously and they're trying to take in the information, and there's, like you said, there's a lot out there. You know, Kelsey, that what you said about Kaepernick meeting with I believe he was a Navy SEAL prior when he was before he started kneeling. Yeah, that's a story that I don't feel like I hear a lot about. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there for a lot of people. Let's do this. Do you guys have any kind of final words or anything you guys want to wrap up with? I mean, first and foremost, I appreciate you all being there on Wednesday. I can tell you that the feedback and that people responded really well. They want to support, you know, this effort. They want to support organizations. But I think like a lot of people, they have questions and they don't always know where to start. But do you guys want to end on anything, or do you have anything to kind of final words before we wrap up?
I think the last bit of this conversation has been, at least what I see as some of the most important part, like informing yourself of stuff, trying to take in a bunch of different sources and understand it from different perspectives. Because we often like look at one thing as like, oh, slavery is in the past, like we don't have any form of that now. But there's so many different ways where like the what's it called, like systemic racism, that's just kind of like a different form of slavery and racism. So learning more about that's always important, and it can be hard because it's something that you've lived with all your life and you always thought was okay, like the jail system, and like learning the roots behind that, like the war on crime and war on drugs, and learning the roots behind that are kind of hard to learn about, but they're also really important conversations to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Ahmad, any final words you want to share?
Well, yeah, just like what Rebecca said, just keep like researching and not allowing, and don't allow like your personal bias or like your like what you thought before, like prevent you from learning more about people, and like be and like put yourself in the other person's shoes. And like the last thing is just like to vote. That's like, I think that's like really the main thing. Like you have to do is just vote and get your voice out there, because even though sometimes sometimes your voice can't always be heard, but I think if you vote, then every vote counts.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Kelsey?
I agree pretty much with what both of them said. Watch. I really, 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 really think everybody, if they haven't watched the 13th documentary on Netflix, I watched it like even before this happened. I watched it in high school, and then I watched it again when I had to write this paper in college. And it's just like how Rebecca said, like there's things we've lived with that we didn't acknowledge, and like either whether you're a colored person or you're just a white person, or if you're not even living in this country, like stuff we've let happen. And but that documentary really, really opens your eyes. And then how Ahmad said with voting, even if you think your vote doesn't matter, one grain of salt can tip the scale. So I agree with both of us that they said what needs to be said. So
yeah, well, good. Yeah, and I agree. There's a lot of things out there, and sometimes it's as simple as watching, you know, a documentary. You know, voting should be a simple thing. Sometimes it's not always, but you know, it's the same thing I say on the field, right? It's like you got to do the little things. And right now, we need a lot of people to do not huge, massive things. We need a lot of people to do little things, and that's voting, and that's watching a documentary or reading an article maybe they're unfamiliar with, or even things like the census, filling out your census, right? Because that allocates resources to people who might need it more. And so there's all these little things that my hope is that, and the message hopefully is that if you do these little things well, we're going to start to chip away at this. And that's when you win ball games, right? That's when you win lacrosse games. So yeah, let's wrap up. But I appreciate you all joining here and chatting with me. And obviously it was a little bit deeper dive than on Wednesday, which is good. And we'll continue to have these conversations. But yeah, thanks a lot, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.